Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
I mean, at the end of the day, Ben, I will always live with the fact that as the accountable officer, 17 sailors died on my watch. 37 were wounded. And all I ask people is, look at how my crew performed in saving that ship before, during, and after the event. And I think the results speak for themselves, because USS Cole is in the Eastern Med right now, helping defend Israel against Iranian ballistic missiles. And it's because of my crew of heroes that saved that ship that USS Cole is still out there today defending freedom.
America never forgets, and our country doesn't forgive our enemies either. Well, it's the 25th year anniversary of the USS Cole attack. That was Commander Kurt Lippold, the captain of the ship, from last year's anniversary, talking about his crew. And this is Training Tuesday. The Rob Maness Show is live on Worldview Tube, our X Spaces simulcast, Rumble, YouTube, Truth Social Plus, Amazon Fire, Apple TV now, and Roku. And that's right. America will go to the ends of the earth to find and hold accountable those who attack us, no matter how long it takes. Yemen is back in the news these days, of course. We just did a whole show of it yesterday with Captain John Conrad, because thanks to President Trump's bold decision-making, we are once again holding terrorists in Yemen accountable for not only attacking American naval forces, but even civilian commercial shipping in the international waters of the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. In this 25th year of the attack that happened there against the Cole, killing 17 Americans, as Commander Lippold said, it is important for us to not just commemorate that anniversary as it comes up this October, but to remind ourselves why these men and women sacrificed so much for us, giving up their lives, and who they were. We also need to remember the heroism and courage of the crew and how the crew responded, saving the ship so that it could eventually be returned to service. Like you just heard, their actions were nothing less than miraculous. And finally, we want to keep those who survived and their families, especially the families of those that died and survived. We want to keep them, especially because accountability is not yet complete against all the planners and attackers on the Cole that day. So keep them in our prayers. Well, my guest today to help us remember is retired U.S. Navy Master Chief Petty Officer Paul Abney. Chief Abney enlisted in the Navy at 19 and rose quickly through the ranks as a surface sonar technician and was the acting command master chief on the USS Cole that fateful day in October year 2000 when it was attacked by terrorists. Paul, welcome to the Rob Maness Show, sir. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on and talk about this story.
Hey, Rob, thanks. And first, let me just make a correction. I might have given you some information a little bit wrong. I was the acting command master chief on there in 1999, right as I made master chief. But within 6 months of that time, Master Chief Parlier came on board. James Parlier was our command master chief on board at the time. He came in from the Fleet Marine Force as a corpsman, a master chief, former master chief corpsman. So this was his first ship, and so we worked together with the damage control team. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear on this.
Thanks for correcting it. We appreciate it, Paul. Well, since you've never been on my show before, just give the audience a little bit of history about you and what led you to become a sailor in the United States Navy a little bit.
Well, I was engaged to a girl in Florida. Was her parents thought I should go to college, and I said, well, the only way I can afford to go to college is with the GI Bill. So I joined the Navy and was going to do 4 years and get out and go to the University of Florida and be a electrical engineer. But yeah, it didn't quite happen that way. 30 years later, I retired as a master chief and then still supported the Navy for another 17 and a half years, the government contractor. So I've got actually, I'm technically still a contractor now, so I guess about 48 years supporting the Navy now.
Still working in the sonar end of the business?
Yes, sir. Just now I'm part-time on call, so just when they have a major naval exercise, I go in and help out a little bit.
Yeah.
Since August, I've been, just been doing it a couple times.
That keeps your fingers in that pot a little bit, just enough, huh?
It does, and it gives me an opportunity sometimes to talk to these sailors about my coal experience, and I enjoy talking about that just to keep them current in what it's really like there, and the importance of training, and how it saves lives. For some time, that was my way of dealing with my survivor guilt. Was if I could save a future life by teaching them how important training was, then that made up for somewhat a life I couldn't save before.
Well, I have to be honest. My oldest son is a former U.S. Navy sailor. He retired not too long ago. He lives in Virginia. I'm not going to say exactly where, but and he's a contractor too. But I went to his basic training graduation and was amazed at the practical emergency response exercise that they said was based on what happened to you guys in the coal, and they made it as real as possible. But getting the opportunity to chat with you today is a real honor, and I look forward to this video being watched by others so that they can learn some lessons too, because it's so important. The Navy built essentially a full up scale model of the incident to push people through and train them on it, and that training is what ends up saving lives, as you pointed out. So every sailor, every airman, every soldier, Marine, they all have a pathway to where they were at on a given day. What was your pathway like, Chief? Give us a flavor of some of the experiences you had as you made your way up through the ranks.
Well, I guess I was blessed in one way that I made rank pretty quickly. I went into the advanced electronic field, so coming right out of A school, I was accelerated advancement to E4. Following that, I made E5 first time up, E6 first time up, and the first time I took the Chief's exam. The Navy Times at that time, fastest way to Chief was STG, and I happened to be a STG that year and made Chief at like 8.5 years. And then about 16 years in, so I almost had as much time as a Chief as I did all my other ranks. I made Senior Chief. And so if you got to sit somewhere, it's not bad to sit in the mess. And then I'd say about 22 years in is when I made Master Chief, and that was actually on board the Cole. I went to the I came off of shore duty, go into the Cole. I actually helped write the acceptance message from the ship. I ghost wrote that so that they could get me on the ship earlier, and I could relieve the Senior Chief on board. I went on there as a Senior Chief and to make a 4-month med cruise because I hadn't been on the East Coast in a while. I did a West Coast ship. I get on there a month before their 4-month med cruise, and lo and behold, the Senior Chief retires, and then we got called to go to the Gulf with another cruiser to instead of going with our strike group. And so I went and did a 6-month deployment in the Gulf. Not quite as fun.
Yeah.
We got to see just from the strike group as they hit ports everywhere and complained about how long they were in port while we were sitting off the coast of Pakistan, I think at the time, doing Pony Express ops.
Yeah, so you guys were on a previously scheduled cruise up to the point where you found yourselves in the Gulf of Aden that morning on October 12th, 2000, right?
Right. That
on.
was the cruise. That was the cruise back in '98, and on the Cole. And actually, on the way back from that was when the embassy bombings were in Africa. But even that didn't seem to get the message across because I was thinking we would surely be turned around. And we went home. Ended up going on this deployment in 2000. 99, like I said, I made Master Chief on board. And we made the deployment in August of 2000. It was shortly after, my mom had died that December before that. Mm-hmm. Kind of crazy time. We're in the Mediterranean off the coast of Kosovo with things stirring up there, and then we got a call to go to the Gulf because of the weapons we had on board. So we went to the Red Sea and we were refueling in Aden, just a brief stop for fuel when this happened.
So you had come out of the Med down through the Suez Canal and were stopping to do refueling before you actually went into the Persian Gulf. Is that the way I understood it?
Yes. Because we didn't have, our Navy wasn't big enough anymore to have us a tanker down there that would have been a lot safer method. So we had to pull in somewhere to get fuel. They opted for that. Normally the choices were Djibouti. I mean, when we went there in '98, we pulled in Djibouti with the San Jacinto because the captain on the San Jacinto did not want to pull into Aden. This time, I don't think Commander Lippo was given the choice. It was more of a diplomatic thing. We were trying to make good with Yemen, and lo and behold, what happened?
Yeah, U.S. Navy ships are messages when they show up, yes. Right? So you were sending a diplomatic message.
And even the ambassador there, when she came on board after the explosion, it was kind of disheartening because she was asking us, were we sure it wasn't an internal explosion? And all you had to do was look at the hole from the outside. You could see all the metal was pointed in.
It's pretty obvious. I'm an old EOD troop, and all I have to do is glance at that hole to see.
Right.
To see it was obviously an external detonation. So the ship. Normally, when you come in to a port like that, you'll have like a pilot on board, a local guy or two. Plus some tugs out there to push you around if you need to. I think I'm not that familiar with the Aden port, but I'm assuming they would want to nose you in, do the refueling, and then take you back out, turn you around and take you back out. Was there anything going on with that whole part of the operation to get you to the point where you could do the refueling? Because you were in a hurry, right? You want to do it fast?
Because of the brief stop, because tensions were kind of high at the time, even though there hadn't been any major escalation since the Gulf War there in the Persian Gulf. There were still heightened pieces because like the embassy explosions 2 years before that. So we were we're at a heightened security posture, and the captain wanted to be bow out so that we could get underway without tugs if we needed to. We were at a dolphin, which is it's like a concrete pier that's sitting in the middle of the bay, So it wasn't attached to any land. And the pilot was, trying to insist that we go portside 2, which would have meant we would have needed tugs to turn us around. So anyway, he lost that battle, but he was not happy about it, or not happy about something, because the crazy thing was him leaving the ship. He didn't even wait for them to put a accommodation ladder. He jumped down about 8 feet onto the pilot boat to get off there in a hurry.
Why do you think he was in a hurry? That caught my attention when I read that myself.
Yeah. Well, we don't know. I mean, we turned that over to the FBI, whether he had some kind of inside information that something was going to happen to us, or whether he was just frustrated with, the fact that he lost the battle with the way we were tied up. I don't know, but it was unusual for me, and that's why I mentioned it, because I was standing outside there and saw and witnessed this, and the fact that he jumped onto this boat without them putting a ladder down was not something you commonly see.
Exactly. Well, we got to take a break, commercial break, Paul. When we come back, I want to go through with you the sequence of events from your perspective and the crewmates that you were with that day, so you can talk us through everything and what you saw happen and what happened to you and your crewmates. We'll be right back with retired Master Chief Petty Officer Paul Abney, who was a crew member on the USS Cole when it was attacked in October of the year 2000.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. Would you like to gain access to over 20 years of my radio shows, TV shows, my books? I've written 15 books, and most of those books are ebooks now, and we have conference DVDs, conferences where we filmed our conferences at the Ozarks, literally starting 20 years ago. It's all available in our archived vault. All you have to do is go to worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault, and for a reasonable monthly fee, you gain access to over 20 years of Christian worldview programming, news, information, books, documentaries, and a powerful search engine. And folks, it's a great way not only to educate yourself, equip yourself, but it's a big way that you can help fund our continuation as a broadcast network. Please check it out. worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault, and help us continue pushing out a Christian worldview.
Above all, friend and foe alike must never doubt this nation's power and will to defend our people. 18 years ago, violent terrorists attacked the USS Cole, and last month, American forces killed one of the leaders of that attack. We are honored to be joined tonight by Tom Wibberley, whose son, Navy seaman Craig Wibberley, was one of the 17 sailors we tragically lost. Tom, we vow to always remember the heroes of the USS Cole. Thank you, Tom.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. And as the title of the show says, America never forgets when our enemies attack us, and we will go to the ends of the earth to track you down and hold you accountable, whether it's through military violence or through the legal system. Eventually, you will be held accountable. And that was President Trump in his first administration. And the other piece to this show is about honoring those sailors who lost their lives that day on the USS Cole. And with me as my guest today is retired Master Chief Paul Abney, who was a senior crew member on the USS Cole that day, was there. Paul, again, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show to talk about this. I know it's hard. As we talked about on the phone, I was at the Pentagon on 9/11. It's not the easiest thing to do to talk about something you personally gone into. But I would like to get your perspective of the sequence of events that day, so we can talk about the heroes on this crew that saved this ship, really.
Well, I think we already talked about when we pulled in there. That was about 9 o'clock, 9:15 or so. And we were expected to be there until late. They didn't know how much pressure the fuel system had to take it on board. But around right around lunchtime, the way chow, which is lunch, goes on a Navy ship, you have 3 different eating places: the wardroom for the officers, the chief's mess for the chief petty officers, senior enlisted, and then the mess decks for the crew. They the people that prepare the meals and stuff will eat somewhere around between 11 and 11:15, and then early chow goes at 11:15. Normal chow will start about 11:30. So about 11 o'clock, when these mess cooks and the chief's mess were eating, they passed the word that we would be probably getting underway a little earlier because we were taking on fuel faster than they thought. And so this was so they could get things prepared. Shortly after that, 11:15, they passed early chow. You got a lot of people waiting in line, all lined up along this athwartship P-way. I had already finished my chow. I was over in the port side of the chief's mess, now in the lounge area, watching Mission Impossible 2, an old movie, but it wasn't that old at the time. And at 11:18, this blast went off, and the crazy thing, it was kind of synchronized with the blast on the movie. So there was a split-second thought in my head was, man, that was loud for a movie, followed by the blast that knocked me backwards. And the last thing I saw as the lights went out and the room became pitch black was the shipmate that was sitting across from me, chair and all, going over my head, and it threw him about 20 feet across the room. The room was filled with this acrid smoke, and it was very hard to breathe. Everybody was choking. Many people were injured, so there was, people moaning, and I was just trying to get out of the space, to get out of the smoke. We're taught to go low when there's smoke or in a place to get away from the smoke rises. But in this particular case, it seemed like the smoke was just as bad all the way through the room. Where the door should have been to exit the building, it was just a mangled mess. So I made my way over to the other exit we had, which was into the galley. And by this time I was standing, and as I stepped into there, the water was up to about my shin. And I ran into Senior Chief Valanahan, who was coming out of the galley saying, I don't think we can get out this way, Master Chief. So we kind of, between the two of us, we understood that where the main door is a false bulkhead, which means it's not real steel like the rest of the ship and the major bulkheads. It's more like sheet metal that's corrugated like cardboard. So it makes so we call it a false bulkhead. So we were going to go over there and beat on this, and on my way crawling over, I had a shipmate grab me by the arm, say, Master Chief, I'm dying. You got to help me get out of here. And the only thing I could tell him was, we got to get to this bulkhead and let people know we're trapped, or we're all going to die in here. And so I had to leave him, and we made our way over. And I just remember beating on this bulkhead for some time. And the next face I saw was HT2 Regal, who at the time we had just moved him up from repair. I mean, just prior to this deployment, we moved him from while we're doing our training, from repair 3 to repair 5. repair 2 and 3 are the forward end and the aft end of the ship that are not. I mean, they're important for firefighting and damage control, but the most important place is repair 5 because that covers all the main spaces. And so he was a real go-getter. So he had taken over as the locker leader there, and this was the guy leading this group of men that got us out of the mess.
Mm-hmm.
It still chokes me up here talking about that because anything close to my heart these days, you have to excuse me, I might break into tears. But
It's okay.
He my hero to this day got me out of there, and I made my way up topside and then started looking for stretcher bearers to try to get the rest of the chief's mess out. I ended up coming back down by the mess deck area, and I know I ran into one of our DC-1s that so, you know, kind of. So they had so many injured people there and people that were caught up in machinery. You know, we've got we got too many problems here, Master Chief. You need to go somewhere else to find some stretcher bearers. And I made my way across the mess decks, and there's some pretty badly injured people that we already triaged out there. Saw one of the guys who did make it off the ship to the hospital, but ended up passing away. His legs were mangled up. They had him in a soak stretcher, and eventually I made my way back into the mess. I was able to get a breathing apparatus and get a light, so at least I was getting good air now. And I got several of our OSs out of CIC because they had gone there for general quarters, you know, based on this explosion, and they came over and were helping to carry the chiefs out and put them on stretchers.
Was the Combat Information Center hit? I know the dining hall, the chow hall, was like one of the main areas, right? What were the other areas?
CIC was forward. CIC was forward of that. So the main area that was hit was just below the galley. And had we been port side to and the starboard side out, it might have maybe even, you know, I don't know if this was a shaped charge or not. I've read that it was estimated to be between 300 to 700 pounds of, you know, TNT equivalent or that type of, you know, plastic explosive. It blew a very large hole in the side of a ship that had, you know, steel this thick. Here's a piece of that the shipyard gave us. I don't know if you could see that on the screen, but it's about the thickness of a phone.
Right.
And after the damage done, this is what that metal looks like. Quite twisted and torn up.
Mm-hmm.
So so that on the port side of the ship, we had a little P-way with a what they call the HT workshop or the general workshop and oil lab. And ground zero, I would say, was the HT workshop. And so what happened there was basically the overhead was pushed up and into the overhead of the galley, and against that bulkhead with the athwartship P-way. So people were crushed against the bulkhead, and people were crushed up into the overhead. That were not recovered until after we had help come over from Mobile Diving Salvage Unit 2 and from the Norfolk Naval Shipyard, and they came over to make sure the structural integrity was such that we could get the ship underway.
Right.
And but their first week there was all recovery efforts, getting bodies, and it was, you know, tough. So I mean, after this, you know, just fighting first to make sure the ship didn't sink, and then afterwards, you know, working in some conditions, it's 100 to 120 degrees outside, and there's no AC in many parts of the ship now, no air conditioning. So quite hot on board, and you've got food thrown all over the place from, it was chicken fajita served that day. And so you can imagine the smell. I've told journalists, go out and stick your head in the trash can after it's been out there for about 3 days in the sun. And that's about what it smelled like working in that environment. So, I mean, there were some people that had a hard time just even going inside the ship, especially around the galley area because of the smell.
Mm-hmm. The right after the explosion, the crew, you were very lucky that the ship didn't burn. Really, obviously there were fires. The crew must have responded. Those that are trained, I mean, everybody's trained in some type of emergency response on a ship. But that young man you were talking about earlier, being in charge of repair there, must have had a great set of people doing heroic things very quickly, in spite of all of the chaos, right?
Yeah, there was, because the oil lab was on that side, there was fuel oil everywhere. I mean, in almost every place there was water, there was fuel on top of it. The fact that there wasn't a fire was a godsend. All I can say, I wouldn't be here today if there was a fire. I would have never gotten out. And the other blessing was, I mean, we were one of the first ships to get SCBAs, which is a self-contained breathing apparatus. It is like what the firemen use these days. Prior to that, most of the Navy ships had a chemical reacted an OBA, and the oxygen breathing apparatus. You pulled a string and lit a candle, which created a chemical reaction that made oxygen. But you weren't supposed to go into a space that had any kind of fuel in it. And here we were. Every space had fuel oil in it. They put down a lot of AFFF, which aqueous, foam fighting. I forget what the third F is for, but you can look it up. It's out there. This, unfortunately, we went through much more than we normally, because it was kind of a lot of it. Without fire main pressure, which we didn't have for some time. It's made to be put out with a fire, spread with a fire hose and created into foam, where, I think a lot of it was just poured out just to get something on top of this fuel oil to try and keep it from lighting off. And they had to secure power midships because there were wires that were arcing and sparking. And so, they did a tremendous job in getting a lot of that stuff done. And I credit most of it to the months of training we went through. I'd never seen a ship train as much as we did prior to this deployment. As a matter of fact, I was a senior enlisted, and I just wasn't used to that, and I would call it ad nauseum.
Yeah,
we trained so much. But in the long run, it was that training that saved so many people's lives, because there were people doing things that, there was no one telling them what to do. All the communications were out, all the power was out. And so people were running around doing what needed to be done without anyone telling them, and then passing that word to Damage Control Central so that they knew what had been done to help preserve the ship.
Yeah, you and I know because we're military men, but the more you train, the more successful you can be in the chaos of an attack or an accident if you're in the middle of it, because you're going to fall back on your training. It's all you have. That's what your brain remembers, that stuff and everything. I mean, you and the other leaders on that ship, Commander Lippold, you deserve great credit for being able to sit here today and say, you know, those young men and women, they did what they needed to do, and they did it right, and nobody was there to tell them what to do. I mean, that's a statement of qualification from a senior NCO, you know, senior non-commissioned officer, that people strive to be able to get complimented like that, and in a life and death situation, Chief. That's amazing. We got to take another break. When we come back, you went and did an interview. You went down to Guantanamo Bay, where they're the mastermind of this operation and this devastating attack that killed 17 sailors, is imprisoned and still hasn't been to trial. And did an interview with Catherine Herridge. We'll see a little clip of that on the way back in, and then we can talk about that, what you hope your hopes are for the future for that individual and the others that may still be out there, and your experience about him. We'll be right back with retired Master Chief Paul Abney of the USS Cole attack in October 2000.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at WVWFoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
We were granted a rare interview with two survivors of the Al-Qaeda attack on the USS Cole. 25 years ago, suicide bombers killed 17 sailors and injured nearly 40. So let me ask you, because it's almost 25 years, what can President Trump do for the families of the USS Cole?
I would think the biggest thing that would help right now is just to bring this trial about.
So you want to see it get to a trial this
trial
fall?
just to end it for the families here and all the people that have been waiting all this time. I mean, I was on board the ship when this happened. I was maybe 20, not even 20 feet, 10 feet above where she was.
Is justice the death penalty? Is it life in prison?
I don't care if they make a deal. Justice is an end to this trial.
Abney, a retired Master Chief, and Lopez, who was a petty officer, sat in the same military court as the accused terrorist al-Nashiri. The Saudi national, who allegedly met with al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden, was arraigned 14 years ago.
This is the trial. It never ends.
Can't even get a trial.
The pre-trial that never ends. It just goes on, my friends. And that's what we're feeling. It's
just listening to you.
Pre-trial motions.
It's like another wound. Is it like another wound?
Yes, ma'am.
In and of itself.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes. These 5 men
Or the only ones
that have been alive longer than we have been waiting for justice. The rest of these guys have been deceased longer than they were alive. He was only 24. He was 22. Come on. This is cruel.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. And this year is the year of the 25th anniversary of the attack on the USS Cole in Aden, Yemen. And my guest today is retired Master Chief Petty Officer Paul Abney, who you saw as one of the individuals in that interview with Catherine Herridge. And, the interview speaks to the long wait that a lot of us have had the Cole folks even longer than us 9/11 folks that were at the Pentagon and in New York City. I would happen to be at the Pentagon. Our families still expect there is going to be as much and maximum accountability as humanly possible in all of those. And the mastermind of 9/11 has still not been held totally accountable. And Chief Abney, I know it's hard to talk about, but it's very important that the American people understand what not just what the families are going through, but also what the individuals that survived also have gone through for the rest of your lives, because traumatic experiences are not something that you just get over, and every human being deals with it differently, both physically and mentally. How have you managed yourself through this traumatic experience over the years that allows you to be able to talk about it as well as you do and those kind of things?
Well, I started off, I guess, in a means of self-healing. It was really, like I talked about, if I could save one sailor by emphasizing how important training is, that what we call muscle memory in the military, what the academics call tacit knowledge. It's only learned by doing. And the easiest way, something like riding a bicycle, watching PowerPoints, YouTube videos, listen to a lecture. You can do that all day, and you're not going to learn to ride a bicycle until you get on it and physically do it. And it's the same way with a lot of our military training and a lot of first responder training, everything, all these different things. So it takes training to save lives, so that you know how to do what you need to do. And so talking about that over time, it is, I guess it's what's called exposure therapy in the psychology world. I didn't find that out until many, many years later. And I went through some other stuff that actually helped me after I found my way back to my Christian faith. I'd been away from the faith for a long time. And, I called myself a Christian, but I really wasn't practicing. I had a kind of a blended belief of a lot of different stuff. And so I will call myself a prodigal son that found, and actually I think it was the good Lord chasing me and disciplining me that eventually brought me back to my faith. And this is a Christian-based program that I went through. It's called the Welcome Home Initiative. We take folks back into this memory and then find Christ in that moment. And it's a very healing piece. Even just to be in the room as part of the prayer team, praying for the person that's going through this, to see them go from this traumatic thought and memory of bringing this back up, and then to find Christ in that moment and see the grimace kind of melt away and joy come out in this. So it is a unique healing experience that really helped me. And I went through a similar program called Operation Restored Warrior. I support another group that branched off of that called the now I'm losing names. But anyway, they have a program that does backpacks for Centurion Witness Ministries is the name of it. But backpacks for homeless vets, as well as they do help with the healing of PTSD. So these things all have helped, and I know other things out there. But I tell you, we've got a lot of our shipmates that have not dealt with it yet. And they still struggle. And, in the same way, I think people across the board with many different types of trauma still struggle with that one way or another, because we don't really, as a community or a nation, know how to deal with it sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, in that short clip of the interview with Petty Officer Lopez and you and Catherine Heritage, you can see that come out. One of the things that I experienced after I left the service is that I had never really talked about the 9/11 experience and other traumatic stuff that I'd experienced over 30 plus years on active duty, because there just wasn't the space for it, you know. But I didn't realize how I was not dealing with it by not talking about it, you know. So I'm very fortunate to run into mentors similar to you that had come before me and said, hey, you know, this is what you need to do, and those kind of things. That's good to hear about these programs. There's so many of those programs. Operation Restore Warrior. And what was the first one you mentioned?
The Welcome Home Initiative.
Okay.
And that is the program, the first program I went through. And then Centurion Witness Ministries is another one that I've been a part of as well. So all of these, like I said, those three I know are all Christian-based programs that have really helped a lot of men and women with post-traumatic stress.
Well, we've got a question from the audience, Paul. I'd like to go ahead and take it. Our host over there is Shell. Shell, go ahead.
We have Cookie, sir.
Good afternoon. First, I'd like to thank you both for your service. So the questions I had is, was there a particular moment that you turned your life to Christ? Is there something defining that? And then how do you keep the faith when you see and maybe have these memories of what happened on the Cole and stuff? How do you keep your faith going?
I don't know about a specific moment. I would, just to try to minimize my testimony to a real quick thing. I kind of learned about Jesus as a child, but as a teenager, I rebelled because I saw the church as kind of a hell and damnation, that it didn't fit with me. Where I took two things Jesus said: love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And I had this strange thread of life, I think I called it, where blended that with yin and yang and karma and all these other things that have some way of spiritual righteous, almost like physics. Anyway, I found that all to be not correct doctrine as I made my way back into Christian, and I guess it was trying to get my daughters to really have a faith or believe in stuff. I call myself spiritual but not religious, but actually hearing the gospel again with a new perspective. And at a men's ministry, I finally surrendered. The other thing was, every time that small, still voice talked to me, I was like, felt not the right guy. But after that, I said I would surrender. I would, whatever the Lord asked. And since then, it has turned my life around. How do I stay with that? Well, I mean, since then, I guess the Lord has opened up my eyes in a whole new way that I just can't. I can't have the faith to see how someone could even be an atheist when I just look at, the creation of the world, the creation of this universe, the creation of everything, and how intimate and delicate it is with this Goldilocks, not too fast, not too slow, not just right as far as everything that all the measurements, just the probabilities of all these different things happening are unfathomable, and that's just to speak of matter itself. As we get into life and the spirit in that, the only thing scientists going to explain is the decay rate once the spirit goes out of life. But no one knows how to actually create life or bring someone back to life. So, it only speaks to God. And then once the relationship is there, and I think that relationship only comes, just like the Bible says, when you humble yourself before God and you ask the Holy Spirit to tell you, reveal his word to you. And that is what gives me strength and faith every day.
Amazing story. Thank you so much for telling that, Paul. We got to take our last break. When we come back, we'll hear from a guy that wrote a song called American Badass, Kid Rock, and how it's related to the crew of the USS Cole, and continue this discussion with the retired Chief Paul Abney. I'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. Is the government tracking you? Do they have access to all your data? Well, if you go to worldviewtalk.com, you'll find out about a cell phone company that, does not store your data. They don't do that. This is what they're known for. They don't store your data. You have privacy. You're not being tracked. That's why a lot of folks are turning to worldviewtalk.com. You'll find their prices are very competitive. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com. Again, worldviewtalk.com. Oh, while you're there, not only do they have cell phones that aren't tracking you, you can find out about how to get a satellite phone. Should the whole system go down and you want to communicate with a family member or a loved one, you might want to have a satellite phone. Or how about their solar generators? They have great solar generators. Check them all out right now. Worldviewtalk.com, worldviewtalk.com.
Those of you serving, who have served, sure I speak for everyone when I say thank you for your service. I'd just like to talk for 2 seconds about my service. And there's a point to this, so if it sounds like a little toot of my own horn or a pat on my back, there's a point to this. Probably some of the most rewarding things I've done in my life and career have been being able to perform for our troops all over the world, from Kosovo, Germany, Afghanistan, Iraq, the UAE, Incilnik, Turkey, Italy, England, all across the U.S. But how did that start? Thank you. Thank you. But I want to tell you a little story how that started. Many moons ago, some of you younger ones maybe weren't even walking yet, there was a horrible attack, terrorist attack in Yemen on one of our ships called the USS Cole, where 17 sailors lost their lives. And when they were getting towed out of that harbor, you can imagine their brothers and sisters, people serving with them, were pretty upset, pretty pissed off. But the upper brass said they could play patriotic music while they're getting pulled out of there. And one of those wise guys put on a little song by myself called American Badass. And they were pretty upset. I got a few pictures with these guys with, after losing, 17 of their brothers and sisters. They got F Yaman across their chests and a couple middle fingers in the air. And it gave me chills when I found out about it. But more importantly, my mother, who's with me today, just celebrated her 80th birthday. It was her who I might note that her father, my grandfather, and my uncle, her brother, served in World War II in Vietnam, suggested, she said, you should do something to help out with them. And this was, kind of before all the crazy wars and everything in the Middle East broke out. And I said, you know what, you're right. And I was raised to be very patriotic and love my country. And so it just happened. We were playing in Virginia, where we have a big presence in our military and the Navy. And I was able to play a show there and donate that money to the families of those 17 sailors that lost their lives. And that was because of one reason, because of my mom, Susan Ritchie. So how about an applause for Mama Rock, who's here tonight.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show, and we're talking about the 25th year, anniversary year that's arrived now of the attack in Yemen on the USS Cole with retired Master Chief Paul Abney, who was there that day as part of the crew and helped work the incident and was a leader in that, rescuing people, saving lives, saving the ship. And continues to this day to advocate for his folks that survived that and for the families. And Paul, I just wanted to play that clip because, the American people are all with you. I mean, there were lots of questions about this attack and everything that have gone on through the years. And I think partially because we've never gotten to closure completely on people like Mr. al-Nasri, who's the mastermind that you were talking about with Catherine Herridge down at Guantanamo Bay. And when you did speak to her, you talked about forgiveness from a Christian perspective. If you don't mind, I'd like for you to talk about that a little bit as it relates to Mr. al-Nasri.
Well, after I'd become a Christian, I was going through an apologetics class, and they asked us if there's anyone that you couldn't forgive, and I struggled with it a bit at that time because this was the mastermind they had down there on court, and I mentioned him. But during that class, I was able to forgive him in my heart, right? But this was many years later. Actually, just last year when I was down there in May. I really had a sense from about 6 months before that I should do this publicly. And so while I was in Guantanamo, I was able to pass through his defense counsel at the time, a man by the name of Mr. Natali, to pass to his client that I'd forgiven him in my heart, and I was praying for his soul. But I still wanted to see him held accountable. And but it moved his defense counsel, and it moved his client. He had told me it happened during that period of time, and this whole thing is frustrating for I think both especially for the families who have lost someone, but also for the survivors and how long this has taken. And I'm sure it's not easy for the Mr. al-Nashiri either, and I don't. Well, it is it's a function of the process itself. So, had they been actual military members of some state, it'd probably be long over with by now, because that's what they originally brought them. Trying to bring them to a military tribunal, just like we've always done for the hundreds of years this country has been about. The last military tribunal we had in the country was for the World War II submarine, German submariners who got off in the Outer Banks and were going to do sabotage, and they were convicted at a military tribunal. But when we tried that with these guys, because they were civilians that committed acts of war, they're in a different category under the Geneva Convention. So they basically scratched that original military tribunal. The Military Commission Act was created several years later. They tried to bring up charges on that, and then the administration changed, and so they had to redo the Military Commission Act. So it wasn't until 2011, by the time it's gone through all this bureaucracy of creating laws and blending military and civilian laws to create a process to hold them accountable. And now it's all new law and new precedents. And so every single thing is being questioned on which way do we go, more like the civilian law, more like the military law. And so we're at something like 600 pretrial motions, and each one of those have multiple letters on them. So there might be, 120 variations of that motion based on the answers from the judge and the defense, and so it takes forever for us to get to a trial. we're still at pretrial motions all these years later.
Our wish, and I know yours is that President Trump can get this job done, and y'all are going to have a 25th anniversary celebration of the folks that lost their lives and the families and everybody that survived this coming October. I think 11th through the 12th. You told me down in Norfolk, Virginia.
Right.
So looking for that, folks. And Paul, I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to say it. Kid Rock, you're invited. President Trump, you're invited. Secretary Hegseth, obviously you're invited. The Secretary of the Navy, these folks would love to see you down there, and we're all praying for success in these trials. Paul, thank you very much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I am humbled and honored to be a part of your show, and I just thank you for the invite, sir.
Likewise, sir. Thank you. So tomorrow's Whistleblower Wednesday. We'll be talking to Jared Madsen, who's a spokesman for an art group called Shin Yun that's being attacked by the communist Chinese because they are working out of New York City and spreading freedom and the narrative of freedom, and the communists don't like that. So we'll be discussing what's happening with them tomorrow on Whistleblower Wednesday here on the Rob Maness Show. I'll see you then.